Well, thank you, Susan. And again, thank you for being us in worship today. Thanks for Scott and Brian for coming back from vacation there. We're glad you guys are back. I want to start off with a statement this morning. It's a statement that contains a lot of truth, especially in my life. And the statement is this: behind every good man, there is a much better woman. So my life is surrounded by women, right? Got 4 daughters at home, my wife at work. Beth keeps me in line. She does an excellent job. I am better because of it. And the Bible is full of stories about women, very pivotal stories. But often, in both ancient and modern times, the voice and the presence of women are easily overlooked or noticed for the wrong reasons. So for the next 6 weeks, we're moving into a new sermon series, and it's called Nevertheless, She Persisted. We're going to look at the stories of 6 women in the Bible. We're going to draw on the ancient stories. We're going to apply them to our lives today. We're going to think together about ways the stories of women in the Bible can influence our faith journey. And so today we begin with the story of Hagar. Now, in order to know Hagar's story, we have to back up just a little bit and give the background of the text that leads to today. And it starts with the story of Abraham and Sarah. The book of Genesis tells us that Abraham, who is the father of the 3 ancient faiths, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, that Abraham and Sarah, that's his wife, were unable to have children. And so in the ancient world, children were not only your lifeline and your future, but also a status of who you were and who you were trying to be and how you were judged. And so Sarah, Abraham's wife, arranged for her servant, Hagar, to serve as a surrogate mother. Sarah owned Hagar. And so she would be able to claim, and this is how it worked in the ancient world, Hagar's child, who would later be named Ishmael, as her own. So for a moment, if you're reading the text that leads to today's story, it seems like everything is working out. Sarah settles into the routine of being the mother of Ishmael, and then Sarah discovers that she is pregnant with her own son, Isaac. So we got all the characters straight so far? Okay. From this point onward, the story of Hagar and Ishmael spirals downward. Sarah, the one who is the owner of Hagar, Sarah is afraid that Ishmael is going to get more attention than Isaac, her son, her biological son. Ishmael was the firstborn son, so he would succeed everything from Abraham and become the next ruler of that tribe, of that generation. Ishmael would be the one who would walk first, who would talk first, who would be remembered first. And as Sarah is playing all these things through her mind, she starts to fear that Ishmael is always going to be a towering presence over Isaac. So Sarah goes to Abraham, and Sarah says to Abraham, I want you to banish Hagar and Ishmael to the desert. Now that was a death sentence. And this text is so troubling in part because Abraham does what Sarah wants him to do, kicking them out to the desert, and God doesn't really intervene. Sarah was so fearful that the only way she could see her way through this was to try to banish little Ishmael and Hagar from their lives. And no matter how I try to do it, cultural norms, exegetical work of the text, whatever, it just seems like a bad story to me. And where is God, I wonder, in all of this? And what is this story in the Bible for? What is it trying to teach us? Why does God allow this to happen? So now at this point, I want to read to you where our passage for today begins and picks up. and then we'll work our way through the story. This is how it's described in the book of Genesis in the 21st chapter. The child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on that day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, playing with her son Isaac. And she said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not inherit along with my son Isaac." The matter was very distressing to Abraham on account of his son. And then listen to this line. God said to Abraham, "Do not be distressed because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for it is through Isaac that offspring shall be named after you. As for the son of the slave woman, I will make a nation of him also, because he is your offspring." So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. So there they are. They're wandering along in the desert. The two of them, they're on their own. The situation is dismal. Death is on the horizon. The end is coming. The water has run out. Hagar cannot take it anymore, and she didn't want to watch her child die. So she places her child in the shade of a lonely bush, and she staggers away 50 feet, and she wails out to God. And you can only imagine this cry, this lament, this pain that she must have been feeling. And then says the book of Genesis, the wails of the baby boy captured God's attention. And God, in the form of an angel, speaks to Hagar and tells her that everything is going to be okay, that from her a great nation will come, that they will not die in the desert, and that it's safe to open her eyes. And so Hagar opens up her eyes, and she squints in the brightness, and she sees the well of water that saves her and Ishmael. Now that's the story. And so when you hear the story, on the one hand, can you say, well, it does have at least some sort of a positive resolution. They're in the desert, God does intercede, and they do live. But on the other hand, why did that situation have to come about to begin with? And what does it say for us today? Why is it so important for the stories of the Bible to intersect with the stories of our lives today? Now, one way to interpret this text is to think about the many symbols that Hagar represents. And as I was working on this week, it seems to me that this story still plays out today in so many ways. And as I've said before, the stories of the Bible happened as in past tense, and they happen as in present tense. Because Hagar is the one who has been rejected. And so you can see your story intersecting there, perhaps. Or maybe as the faithful maid that has been exploited, the one who is abused by the ruling class. Or maybe perhaps you can identify with Hagar as the surrogate mother, or the refugee, or the resident alien without any legal recourse, or the other woman, or the runaway youth, or the religious fleeing affliction, or the pregnant young woman alone, or the expelled wife, or the divorced mother, the homeless carrying bread and water, the indigent relying upon handouts from power structures, the welfare participant, the woman whose identity shrinks as they try to serve others. Whatever you may identify with, or whatever label there may be in the story, it existed for Hagar, and it still exists today. Brian's going to cue up for us now a video that I saw a couple weeks ago. You may have seen this already. It's kind of making the rounds, and we're just going to watch the first 3 minutes of it. But it's a video that was released by the United Methodist Church to show that we are still working on addressing issues of equality for women, even in the church and mainline denominations. So this short video, when we may need to turn the lights down on the screen there too, I'm not sure, but this short video has United Methodist male pastors read statements aloud that have been said to United Methodist female ministers, and they don't know ahead of time what it is the statement they are reading. Let's just watch this for a few minutes and see some of these statements here.
You are the first woman preacher I've ever met. Are they all as good looking as you?
Are they all as good looking as you? As good looking. That must be the criteria.
Are they all as good looking as you? Oh, man.
Come here, Pastor. I just need a little kiss for comfort.
I just need a little kiss for comfort. Whoa.
Ugh.
I just need a little kiss for comfort. Wow.
I have never met a female pastor before. What do I call you? Pastorette?
What do I call you? Pastorette? These are serious?
Yes, these are all real.
That outfit looks really nice. We must be paying you too much.
We must be paying you too much. Why would this ever come out of anyone's mouth?
You're like a little girl playing pastor up there.
You're like a little girl playing pastor up there.
How's that at all appropriate? You don't look like a senior pastor.
What's that supposed to look like?
You are perfect for us, except for the problem that you are a woman.
You were perfect for us, except for the problem that you are a woman.
I've heard that before, but the other way around, when somebody said, "We're so glad that you're a man." And I said, "Me too, but I don't know what that means." But I did know what it meant.
We really like you and think you're a great pastor, but you can't be the senior pastor because you're female.
And that's, why not?
We called you because we knew we could afford you. Women pastors are cheaper. This is awkward. I don't know what kind of reaction I need to be giving or whatever, but I do know, but I don't know. This is terrible.
You shouldn't negotiate your salary and ask for more money. You should just be grateful you are getting a call at all as a female.
You should just be grateful you're getting a call at all as a female.
So when are you going to have a baby?
So, when are you going to have a baby?
What are you going to do Sunday morning if your child gets sick?
My goodness. Yeah. What are you going to do Sunday morning if your child gets sick? Take care of your kid. Sorry. It's just what it is. Sorry.
Take care of the child.
Hey, you're looking good.
Hey, you are looking, that is, no. You are looking good. Yeah.
Yuck.
Your belly is finally sticking out farther than your boobs do.
Your belly is finally sticking out farther than your boobs do. Seriously?
I heard you said you could be bishop one day. Don't you think that's going a little too far?
Sue Briner. No, it's not.
I'm sorry, guys. Like, that is bull. All right,
really
there we go. That's good.
That's uncomfortable.
They're sad, right? Scary. And it's also true that those things are said. Those short clips show that women of all ages still, even in this country, especially in this country, have to work to overcome prejudice and ill treatment. And as the father of 4 young girls, that really troubles me. And it troubles me that within the stories of the Bible, especially with stories like Hagar, there are so many moments of celebration that when you hear that story for the first time are easily glanced over. Because here's the story of Hagar you don't hear too often. Hagar is a pivotal figure in biblical theology. She is the first person in the Bible to be visited by an angel with a divine message. She is the first person and the only person in the book of Genesis who dares to call God by name, and she is the first one to be named by God. Within the historical memories of Israel, Hagar is the first woman to bear a child. Hagar, within the story of the Bible, is an extraordinary person and figure in the person of faith. She is the first woman to hear an annunciation from God. She is the only one to receive a divine presence of descendants, and she is the first to weep for her dying child and to call God out. Hagar is a prototype for all mothers and fathers and disciples of Christ. And yet, that story of Hagar isn't celebrated and shared very often. Now, I realize that as a white married male with 4 children, I have little voice to claim on this passage, right? But I'm struck that in the narrative of Genesis, God doesn't show much mercy or tenderness until he or she is confronted by Hagar. And then when Hagar calls God by name, God no longer becomes this impassive creator or mighty warrior, but instead a type of God where love is let loose. Hagar says to God, "Why? Why?" And all of a sudden, God begins to show a totally different sense of character, a God of love and of mercy and of redemption. And this character of God flows all the way from Genesis to the end in the book of the Revelation and the gospel stories, but it takes a woman to point it out to God. So on this day, when we celebrate and worship with one another, I give thanks to God for the stories of women like Hagar and the stories of so many others who have let God's love flow throughout this world thousands of years ago and still today. And through Christ we say together, Amen.